If you're a candidate looking for an opportunity, step one is usually to write a CV and to get something nice out there that you can start sending out there to try and get interviews. So if we just talk about CV tips for a few minutes, what would kind of be your like number one tip, piece of advice for an engineer which is writing a resume and trying to use that to get interviews? If it was to start with yourself, Adam, what would be your biggest piece of advice there?
Use templates.
Templates, okay.
I mean, there are already like predefined template styles.
Yeah.
Like which allow you to structure your CV.
Yeah.
And bother with the cover letter. That's probably. I mean, that's not part of the CV itself, but that's like I feel like that's part of the papers that you need to submit.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Templates is a good piece of advice. I mean, there's so many people that I see write CVs and it's all over the place. So if they can go and get a model which works and which is proven to work and they can replicate that and enter their data, and there's so many free sites that do this, then yeah, that's certainly a no-brainer, mate.
That's easier for the like interviewers like to check like what's there, and I feel like consistency is the key. Like if your CV is clean, consistent, like structured, I mean that already says what type of person you are.
Yeah. It blows me away how many times I read like a software tester's CV who are supposed to be great at attention to detail, and there's like spelling mistakes everywhere, the formatting's all wrong. It's like you're not going to be a great tester if you can't get the resume part right. Okay, but what do you think, Vicky, on CV tips? What would be your biggest piece of advice?
I don't have a strong opinion on CVs, to be honest. I am a lot more lenient with CVs, I think. Like I have had co-workers, point out to me saying, oh, this CV has, spelling mistakes,
Sure.
So they were like, oh, let's not, put them through all because, we want someone who has, that kind of attention to detail. For me, I guess I don't really care so much because I don't know, like why they have spelling mistakes. Is it because English isn't their first language and they're still learning, or, do they have dyslexia as well? And I have, co-workers who say, oh, but then they can use, tools as well for this. And I'm like, but I don't really know their personal situation. So yeah, like who am I to judge? So honestly, I'm super lenient on CVs as long as it's got, clear information on, kind of what tech stack, they've worked with, something that I personally would like to see is kind of location, because sometimes it's not very clear from, just their profile. And sometimes they don't even have a CV and it's just a LinkedIn profile, which is fine. But then if the LinkedIn profile doesn't have anything either, it makes it super difficult to kind of screen.
I like what you mentioned around the tech stack, because that's an obvious one, because so many people will list 100 technologies on their CV, but you don't know what type of developer that they are. Just having a one-liner at the top where you're a Java developer specializing in AWS, microservices in fintech. I mean, if you had that sums up your profile. But if you've got 100 technologies and there's no ranking, there's no ordering when you've used them, where you've used them, how long you've used them for, if you're an advanced or a beginner, then it's just hard for people to recognize if it's worth having an interview, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, that does remind me. Something that does bug me, but it just bugs me personally, is if you have someone who's a junior and it says that they're an expert in a specific language, it's like, I'm not sure I fully, kind of agree with that. But
they're hurting themselves. I see graduates who have CTO as their most recent job title because they had a side project, and they don't realize that a lot of people reading the CV, reading it for 5 seconds before deciding to put it through to the hiring manager or not, they're rejecting it because they're thinking, oh, this is way more experience for a junior developer role, but they just don't realize they're hurting themselves. You're obviously the king of CVs, Adam. You probably reviewed thousands in your lifetime.
Yeah,
mate.
probably tens, hundreds of thousands. I don't know, a lot. I know you wouldn't think it to look at me, but I've been in recruitment for 20 years, nearly. So, I've got a lot of experience. I think I mentioned this on the previous podcast we did.
Yeah.
A lot of recruiters read CVs bottom up. And when I said that, everyone agreed with me, like, oh, yeah, we all do that. And I asked everyone in my team, I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, we read from the bottom up to the top to get an understanding. Like, you read the top lines, what you mentioned there, like, are you I'm a Java dev, microservices, whatever. You read that bit, and then you go to the bottom and start building the career from the bottom. So it's certainly important to make sure that it reads well.
Yes.
One of my pet hates is copy-paste. So when there's 6 bullet points, and in the last 6 jobs, those 6 bullet points are exactly the same. Okay, you might have done similar work, but it's not exactly the same. So getting that across is, I think, is really important. And then, the formatting. I agree with Vicky there as well on the like spelling mistakes. it might not be someone's English might not be their first language. Like, you know, there might be neurodiverse.
Yeah.
So like my daughter's autistic, and she is like just a fountain of knowledge in things that she cares about.
Sure.
The rest of the stuff doesn't care.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter to her. She doesn't care about it. So it's like, you know, lots of people that are neurodiverse are absolutely amazing at some of the stuff they do. With engineers, I love to see like a GitHub link.
Yeah. Me too.
A Stack Overflow link, something like that you can hand to it. I mean, I can't read it, but I can give it to a hiring manager, say, hey, what do you think of the code in this repo? I've tried to learn how to code a few times and I'm useless at it. So, you know, it's putting that relevant information onto the CV.
Yeah, that's well said. Okay, so we've got everyone listening. They've got amazing CVs now. They're templated. They're short. They got all the tech skills on there. Everything's relevant. Let's say they get an interview, right? Let's do the same thing, but number one piece of advice for actually doing the interviews. The point of a CV is to get an interview. Point of the interview is to get the job. But let's focus on the interview part. So start out with yourself, Vicky. What would be like your biggest piece of advice for a software engineer going for an interview at the moment?
I think if you're interviewing, you should maybe have a clear idea as well, potentially, of what you're looking for.
Yeah.
As well, because sometimes, you know, I will do like the initial, you know, hiring manager screen, and people are, you know, they say, oh, I don't really mind, you know, what to work on, and you know, I'm like, okay, sure, but I feel like you might have an opinion, and what I try to do is I want to make sure that interviews are a two-way street, right?
Yes.
I want to make sure, you know, that we find the best fit possible, and sometimes when someone doesn't, you know, when we don't hire someone, it's not because they haven't passed, you know, all of like the technical stages. It's just they're just not to the shape of a person that I'm specifically looking for the team. So yeah, I like honestly, I'm not that bothered if someone comes in and they don't know anything about the company, because I feel like, you know, like it's the whole point, right, of the interview.
Sure.
But it would be great if people had like maybe some questions, you know, like prepared, because it's a bit awkward when you end an interview and you're like, oh, any questions? And they're like, okay, none.
Yeah, it shows they don't care. They haven't done any research. They're probably not that interested in if they haven't done, you know, research and prepared questions. Because if you ask, that's your opportunity to really impress them. You know, I saw that you just raised this much money. What are you planning to do with it? You know, have you heard about what your competitors done in this area? What do you think? Those questions are the difference between them saying yes to you and saying no to you. You know, it's the way to determine if somebody is a great fit for the company often is by the types of questions that they ask, right? That will show their problem-solving skills and everything. And if they just don't have any questions, then that's like an immediate like red flag a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind if you know they if their questions aren't specific, you know, about the organization. If it's just more about like ways of working, and because like I said, I don't really mind if they haven't done any research, because it's kind of a bit of my job as well to tell them more about the company. And there's only so much you can find out anyway sometimes about different organizations. But it is a bit awkward at the end of the interviews. It's like, okay, well, bye then. It's nice talking to you.
What's your take, Adam, on top interview tips?
I think read the stuff that you're sent.
Yeah.
So like we have done a lot of work as a talent team on like sending over just the right amount of documentation. I used to work with somebody who sent like this 50-page slide thing. It was just like people are not going to read that. So we've done a lot of work around like what is Currency Cloud, or what are Currency Cloud, Visa, that sort of stuff, and then also what the tech team is or what the product team is, like how just a little one-pager, right, on what they are, and it's really clear when people haven't read those documents because you kind of they'll ask questions that are covered in those documents. So read the documents. And then the other thing, I think, is just be you, right? You know, there's lots of companies out there. As I said earlier, you know, there's still a war on talent. Be you and go somewhere that the you is appreciated and able to be yourself. You know, you shouldn't go somewhere that you feel that you need to be somebody else. So just be yourself. Be yourself on the interview. And if people like what they hear, see, they're going to be happy. You know, you'll find that you'll work somewhere that you're going to feel like you're at home.
I got exactly the same advice from Helen Murdoch, who is like a recruitment leader. She was on the podcast a while back, and she said, like being your authentic self. It will shine through in the interview. Like people will know, oh, this person's legit. They're genuine, as opposed to, you know, you can have those conversations with people and you know that they're holding stuff back, but it feels weird, it feels awkward when you're speaking to them. Okay, what would you say, Artem? What would be your kind of wisdom for people looking to interview right now?
These are two amazing points. Like I actually wanted to mention those. I was first like, I mean, I could only expand them. And speaking about like be yourself, like just chill. Like,
Yeah.
That's not like you're going to some exam and like that's just like you're looking for the people you would spend your like next best years with, like that kind of stuff. Like so you'll be seeing these people like each day, and that's nice when you're like being interviewed by your hiring managers, like someone that you'll be working with, like probably not hiring manager, but the lead that you'll be working with.
Yeah.
So just relax and like that. And to expand Vicky's point, ask for insights.
Yeah.
I mean, the interviewer is the same person as you. He's working for the company. There's nothing worse than false expectations, like for both sides. Like either you're overly excited, oh, I'm joining like the dream company, and when you're joining, that's basically not.
Yeah.
Because there are like lots of like there is this dark side of the company.
Nothing's perfect, right?
Oh yeah. Or like when you're like not joining the company because you just think that that's kind of like not really good one, but in fact that was the perfect match, and you just didn't have the data, and you didn't have the data because you didn't ask like that.
Yeah.
And for interviewer, that's the same stress, like not stressful, but like kind of like he wants to give everything about the company.
Yes.
Just ask about it.
Yeah, just chill is great advice. It's almost like the opposite of Nike's logo, but it's it's cool. I mean, I mean, absolutely right. An interview is just a conversation between like two or more people. That's all it is, really. And the best case scenario is you get a job. Worst case scenario is you're back exactly where you were before the interview, so you have like nothing to lose. You know, I think that's a good way to wrap up interviews. Hey, thanks for watching this YouTube video. If you want to see more like this, please remember to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.